pitches, working together to keep America proud. I was sitting in the back row of a beautiful little church in a mountain town in the Rockies. I was there for the wedding of the daughter of a good friend. As the service progressed, my attention was drawn to a banner that hung on the wall. It was handmade, cut from cloth, and intended to be inspiring. It read, "Mount up with winos." Mount up with winos? Many thoughts went through my mind as I tried to absorb the full meaning of this elaborate banner. I have come to realize over the years that many Protestant churches have become more liberal in their teaching, accepting alternative lifestyles, less moral browbeating, less blatant emphasis on money, and greater tolerance of lesser sins like fall football and alcohol. And I guess there is something to be said for that religious creed. After all, Jesus himself never discriminated. But being a thinker myself, I began to concoct other potential banner slogans that might be acceptable in this New Age congregation. Ride with the risque. Lie down with the litigious. Commune with the immoral. Huddle with the homeless. Do lunch with the character deprived. Well, the wedding audience was mostly ranch people, men with sunburned faces wearing new jeans and uncomfortable in their ties. The women wore their best dresses, and the kids were glad to be anywhere off the ranch. We all squirmed quietly in our pews as the preacher read the vows, but we were happy for the parents. I'd come with my family to pay tribute to them, my friends. But I admit my distraction with the banner had consumed a good part of my attention during the service. I began to think that it was inappropriate. When the soloist rose and sang the final George Strait love song while the bride and groom escaped, she was positioned right below the banner. Poor planning, I thought, or at least in poor taste. As we were filing out, I asked my daughter what she thought of the banner. "Which one?" she asked. "That one right above the singer," I answered. She studied it and read aloud, "Mount up with wings." "Oh, kind of cool, I guess. Why?" "Oh," I said, bowing silently to wear my glasses more often. "Just curious." This is Baxter Black, brought to you by B&W Turnover Bowl.
You're listening to the Inland Talk Express, 1050 AM and 106.5 FM, KCAA Loma Linda.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa. To be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate, to live, love, laugh, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Fay on ubnradio.com.
And welcome. You are tuned in to my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon and on Thursdays and Saturdays on my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel, AM 1050, and now FM 106.5. Woohoo! You are now you get me everywhere, including all those channels and then Stitcher and iTunes and YouTube. So you can't escape my splattering of hope and happiness because there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K words, no Kardashian talk on this show at all. Instead, I'd like you to focus on your own reality show and how you can make it happier 88% of the time. And that is why today we are talking about what happened in Paris. We're talking about safety. We're talking about terrorism. Not because I specifically wanted to. For those of you who are loyal weekly listeners, you know I had planned to have a gentleman come in, Greg O'Brien, who's an award-winning journalist who had become stricken with Alzheimer's early onset and wrote a book, and they actually approached me to have him on the show, and I was very thrilled to have him. I will have him. He had an unforeseen conflict and emergency, so instead I thought about what I should do on the show today, and normally I don't like talking about CNN, constantly negative news, you all know that, but I was hearing some things that really concerned me. The reactions from over half of our states to now not allow refugees. I heard about all of the people getting beaten up because they looked Muslim or were Muslim. And I thought, you know what? It is time to talk about this. It is time to look at it in a balanced way. I had many listeners ask me to talk about it and to review or look at this in a way that is different than what you're hearing in the hate perspective and the angry, fear-based perspective that you're hearing on the news today. And if you've noticed, thanks to Sharon, my staff interpreter, this is another Radio for Our Deaf series today. So if you know anyone who does use American Sign Language, please do alert them to today's show, or you can always get this on Thursday or Saturday as well. And thank you, Sharon, for providing this service. And we'll give her a little bit of applause. It's a wonderful friend that I met at Agape, who's been helping me with this. And I was just reminded, I was telling our guest that it's a wonderful ad to have this opportunity to have a large listening base of people who are deaf, because Radio for Deaf kind of sounds a little bit different. But what happened was I had this inspiration about a month after we got cameras in the studio, and then the Friendly Universe took care of all the PR, because the very week that I had Sharon here, I don't know if you remember that, Sharon, was the same week as Nelson Mandela's service had that not real interpreter. So it was a wonderful synchronicity and a wonderful positive press that we got for this show. So welcome to all of my listeners from the deaf community and from the listening community. Thank you for supporting this show that is about hope and happiness. And also, before I forget, last week I did give a report on Australia and my near-life beautiful experience there. I did forget to thank one person, and that was Lisa, who actually did surgery on my foot because I accidentally stepped on some coral in the Great Barrier Reef in my rush to swim with the turtle. So thank you, Lisa, for your help that happened in one of the Fiji Islands. All right. Now, today, I did find a perfect person to come and talk to me about safety and terrorism, and that is Chuck Harold, who's actually a retired cop and worked security for Fortune 50 companies and has his own show on this station, Universal Broadcasting Network, and he's a fabulous new host, so I wanted also to give him some props and a platform to share his show, and I thought this was the perfect topic. So without further ado, please do welcome to my studio, Chuck Harold. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And you're Skyping in from?
Beautiful Portland, Oregon.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you could do that and join me today as we talk about this very important and sensitive topic. And your perspective is a great one because it is about security. So just as a recap, and it's interesting because when I just got back from Australia, I did not get involved in all of the details until I knew I was doing the show, and I spent a lot of time yesterday doing research once I had confirmed you to come on. And as you were saying before the show, it just keeps changing on
right.
What happened. And of course, I don't think there's anyone in my listening audience that doesn't know what happened and the tragedy that happened to those 120 plus people who lost their lives in joy, actually in places of joy, that they were enjoying themselves and participating in really fun activities, and then unexpectedly were either gunned down or bombed down by these Islamic terrorists. And I almost want to say terrorists that were Islamic, because of some of the reaction that is going around that I alluded to, where I'm just absolutely, I'm saddened, and then I'm horrified, not just by what they did, but now what people are doing in response to what they did. So random acts of violence against Muslims, getting beaten up, getting just treated in a way that is unbelievable, in that they're not terrorists, but they are suffering the backlash of what I call our dark side, or our impulse to be just like not have any kind of balance, so to speak, in our reactions towards this and what is happening. As I wrote in my promo, we could not control what happened there. Of course, we wouldn't have had it happen. But we can control how we now react to what's going on. Chuck, what are some
That's
of
always
those?
the key, right?
Yeah.
So I was struck by this after 9/11. It was the first attack of such thing in the country, right? The first thing we kind of experienced. We experienced as a group, as a whole. We didn't see this sort of reaction where people are now. There was some of that, right?
There was some,
people
right, but not to the extent that we're seeing, and so immediately after.
Right, and I think the reason for that is this. First, that was a new experience for us. We weren't quite sure what had happened, but it's just like, I got 14 brothers and sisters, okay? And we get around the table for
Small
Thanksgiving,
family.
and everything sounds great until somebody tells an old story about something, and it all goes to hell, and we all start fighting about it. Except we all rally back together at the end, right? Because we're family. The United States is family, and you can do something, we can fight among ourselves, but if you attack us, we come together. Now, this happened after 9/11, and what's happening now is, I think people feel, hey, I thought you guys were going to keep us safe,
Right.
and now that didn't work, it's not happening, and now I'm going to take care of my own personal safety. I think we're seeing that shift with people, and I think it's a mistake to go there now, and the reason we talked about before the show, right?
Right.
My investigation's police investigations and all that kind of thing. And I know from interviewing tens of thousands of people that the first thing they tell me that comes out of the mouth is usually completely not true. It's just the way it goes, right?
Right.
So, did you murder that guy? Well, no. Or yes. I mean, whatever. It's a minor response to a small question. So, when people see the first news cycle that Paris is attacked and they say, oh, it was Islamic terrorists, you know what? Probably. But I don't get excited about it because I'm going to wait at least a week for that news cycle to clear and start finding more information and deciding what the facts are. And by the way, it's difficult to do that nowadays. There's more difficulty to find facts on the internet than there was on the phone call to your friend or the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? Because there's so much misinformation, or the information is digital, easily changed into a political motivation.
Correct.
So my advice to people to be balanced on these things is don't freak out when you turn on the news.
Right.
I mean, that's the first thing we do to
Yes.
keep ourselves feeling safe, right?
Yes. And what is the truth? The truth is someone's funneling of the facts through their perception.
Not even facts necessarily, by the way.
And not
It's
necessarily
funneling
facts. And not necessarily, you're right. Because
It's funneling perceptions through a fact mechanism. That's, I look at it in reverse, right? You're putting your perception of what the facts are through a mechanism that is supposed to be facts
Right.
and traditionally used to be.
Right.
Walter Cronkite, we believed what he said. Now, not so sure, right?
Right. Well, in every given moment, I heard this statistic. On the other hand, 42.7% statistics are made up on the spot. Thank you, Stephen Wright. But in every single moment, there's supposed to be 150,000 possible pieces of news that you would call the truth or facts that you could report. Now, what happens is your bias will select certain pieces of the truth.
Absolutely.
So,
right.
so that's why, for me, I purposefully try not to talk about what everyone's talking about, because that's feeding into, especially if it's a negative frenzy, it just feeds into more and more of that. But,
It absolutely does. I agree with you 100%.
So the one thing that does, let's talk about this safety thing, okay? Because it was, and you saw the shift when we talked yesterday, where, in the past, there's something palpable that has shifted a little bit in the reaction. And I did my research all around Seal Beach yesterday. So, what do you think of what happened, or what is your reaction to? And I got a range from I don't think I've processed it. I'm numb. Or, at work, we're not even talking about it because nobody really wants to talk about it, because we're afraid of what the bottom line is here. And then the other extreme is, which is, this is why our government's all screwed up. They can't protect us. We need to bomb them off the face of the earth. And this is why, I read that stupid, I shouldn't say stupid because that biases me, but the tweet in my research, Donald Trump saying, I told them that they should bomb this, and now, and they said no, but I was right, So that whole, okay, we haven't done enough. They're getting too big. How could this happen? We're supposed to have the top security. Why has this happened to, America? Why did it happen in France? And I guess I was talking to a neighbor who said apparently France has even better intel and better response than even America. That's one we don't know if it's fact or true, but the perception. So if it happened to them and they had no inkling or warning, what does that say to our safety? And so what I've seen is this massive fear factor loom large, where before it may not have been quite so palpable. Does that make sense? So that same immediate reaction, watching the planes go into on 9/11, and that, oh my God, we're never safe again. We're never going to be able to travel again. We're never going to be able to enjoy ourselves in a music stadium or a music hall or a football stadium. My freedom to experience safe, the feeling of safety is now gone. And that's why we're talking about this, because that is, I think, if we go down that rabbit hole, we are hurting ourselves more than the terrorists could ever have.
Well, by the way, bombs and bullets are basically what, quote, terrorists are all about. It's not the James Bond, I'm going to put a nuclear bomb at the stadium, although that's plausible, all right? The bombs and bullets are designed to do one thing. It can be afraid, right? Mm-hmm. Does it, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, it's going to sound terrible, but with that philosophy, what is their strategy? And the strategy is to make you and I get on a radio show and get pissed off about it and talk about it and
give them
and provoke fear, right?
And give them
spread the fear, okay?
Yeah.
I think it's what shift, and we talked about this before the show. I have friends on Facebook. I'm constantly posting, things about this kind of thing and stuff, and I've been saying, well, for 2 years, coming to a shopping mall near you, this is going to start happening. Here's why. It's just a logical extension. And by the way, it's not too difficult to understand that, because one thing these guys do, their psyche is, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to tell you what I did. Right? This is the best sort of bad guy you can possibly have that foreshadows that. And that's a fear mechanism.
Tactic.
It's also a control mechanism, right? Yet we decide, well, they're not going to come to the mall in Burbank. That's because our government's going to protect us. So if you look at it this way, I think the shift has been, we expected not to have another 9/11. If they can attack Paris like you just said, then something's obviously wrong with the intel or something. I don't see it that way.
Okay.
Here's how I see it. First of all, if you look at not the words that are happening when these things respond, but what people do, actions are really your knowledge and your fact, right? So we hear people say Paris didn't know what was going on, French police didn't know what was going on. And by the way, I agree with you. Paris and France have a very good intelligence system. They have the French Foreign Legion, by the way, one of the best forces in the whole world, who have intelligence gathering capabilities. So with it less than 24 hours, France and Paris, who did not know about this supposedly, did what? Send airplanes to Syria, kick in doors, go to Belgium. Now, how did that happen if they didn't know anything about it? Mm-hmm. One argument is, well, the United States furnished that data. Okay, then does that mean the United States knew about it before it happened and let it happen? We can go into the conspiracy theory part of this, and I think, by the way, some of it is a good discussion, intellectual discussion. Mm-hmm. But this is not an intellectual discussion. This is an emotional discussion, right? Because people respond to this emotionally. And we have to pull that back and not respond and buy into their plan, which is to get you to fight with each other.
Right.
And tear our fabric apart internally.
Right.
And that's their goal. I mean, listen, a guy gets on TV and says, my stated goal is genocide. My stated goal is to wipe out your Western culture and civilization. And we go, well, he probably doesn't mean it. Let's make a treaty. Let's hold hands, roast marshmallows. That's not how you deal with people like that, right? Now, when you stick the word Islamic and terrorist and all these adjectives on top of it, and you create a bunch of acronyms, and it's ISIL and it's ISIS and it's Al Qaeda, and you say potato and I say potato. You're talking about marketing, all right? This is no different than the gangs of Chicago marketing themselves as the Al Capones and the super criminals and all that kind of stuff. These people are very smart. They're savvy about these kind of things in this media. And again, we buy into it by acknowledging them as a state and an entity and an acronym. They change their acronyms every 5 minutes. Why do they do that? Because they're marketing a new terror, a new thing like that. So if we look at them as a criminal organization, and that's basically what they are.
And they are.
And we take away this religious overtone to it and the profiling to it and things like that. It's a bunch of nut jobs running around trying to kill people, and those are criminals. And we should treat them that way and not treat them with any further reverence or respect because of the religious component, right? Now, the problem is that you want to sit around the table and talk about religion with somebody, you're going to get a fist fight in any community in America because it's an emotional, personal thing.
Yes.
And we should never belittle somebody's religion. We should never make fun of religion. We should live and
That's
let
what our
live.
country was founded on.
That's what it's founded on, right? And so these guys know that, so they're going around creating all these discussions and all these problems. So I think what people are afraid of is they don't really know how to respond to this. And I have 3 things, if I may,
Sure.
that I'll
Can
tell
I
you about.
Yeah,
and I think it
hold
ties
on one
nicely
second.
into your whole philosophy.
Let me identify. Hold on.
Yeah.
Chuck, you know this. As a fellow host, if you're listening right now and wondering who I'm talking to, you are listening to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And yes, we are talking about Paris. We are talking about terrorists. And I have as my guest to do so with me is Chuck Harold, who is the Security Guy radio host and also a retired cop and a private security consultant now, to talk about his views, and which I agree so far. And he's going to give us 3 choice reactions instead of the emotional reactions we've been having, correct?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it, right? So the first tier, there's 3 tiers. All security is personal, all security is local, and all security is now, right now. So we'll go over those 3 things one at a time. What do I mean by personal? Well, only you know how safe you feel right now sitting in that studio in Hollywood, right? I don't really know because that's your personal feeling. The feds don't know. They have some intel that there may or may not be an attack in Hollywood that's prominent, but they don't really know for sure. And you have to decide what makes you feel safe and what doesn't make you feel safe. We discussed earlier that when people turn on the TV, they flip out because now they feel unsafe because they don't know what's going on. And the reason for this is that they don't believe all security is personal. Most people believe that the police are protecting you, the federal government's protecting you, maybe your dad's protecting you, I suppose, could be another, a smaller view of that. And really, it's just not the case. It's just flat out not true. I was a cop 13 years for 3 agencies. I went on thousands of calls with thousands of people in all kinds of terrible situations. The best I could do is if I got there early, I could slow it down or stop it. If I saw it before it happened, I might be able to prevent it. But for the most part, police function is to come in, stop a situation, clean it up, and report it, right? So if you look at security as personal and you decide, I'm going to take personal responsibility for my own safety, here's what happens. Let's say that everybody in the United States had the same background in security that I did, and we had the same psychology background that you had, right? You and I are sitting next to each other.
That's scary.
And nothing's going to happen. Well, it is kind of scary, isn't it? Take that back. That's a good point. But what would happen? Really nothing, okay? Because you and I behave, right? And here's the other part about personal security people to understand. When things tip, and we tip into world wars, and we tip into personal conflicts, and we tip into domestic violence, the balance of your personal safety and how you feel has been exaggerated, right? If everybody behaved like you and I did all day long, there would be no wars, there would be no conflicts, there would be none of these things because you sitting next to me makes me safe and vice versa. And when I witness the guy next to us over here, the third person in the studio, who starts acting like the fool.
Jarvis?
I didn't say Jarvis. No, I wouldn't say Jarvis. He's a good guy. Let's say we have another person, right?
Right.
And we don't say something, and we let that behavior continue. That behavior escalates. But you know this from domestic violence issues, right? If you stop that behavior early on and say it's not okay to yell, it's not okay to hit, it's not okay, you can correct that. But when people are allowed to escalate into their own personal world and function on their own personal impulses and not get checked at the door by people around us, then it becomes an unsafe environment. Now, fortunately, 10% of the people in the population are bad guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if
or
it was
less.
20? Or less. Well, especially nowadays, it's
yes.
even better in a
it's
way.
Less.
So the good news is crime is down.
You never know that it was less because of what's on the news. Because if it bleeds, it leads. And so if you do watch the news all the time and you see a 99 acts of violence and one soft, good-feeling story, then guess what? What do you believe? You believe that things are worse. And in actual fact, in Europe, 200 years ago, there was 100. We are 100% less in crime, and in possibility of getting killed than 200 years ago in Europe. So,
absolutely.
But based on what the reaction that we're seeing, that statistic is one of those 42.7 that are made up.
That's right, because they're filtering perceptions through their fact filter and turn it into something else. And we are safer than we've ever been. The quality of life for people on Earth, even in the most impoverished countries, is better than it's ever been, right?
Right.
Yet, what we're fed is, oh my God, we're under attack, everything's bad. Now, one reason that these people, the bad guys, are able to get away with some of this stuff is because I think, frankly, we've become a little lulled into feeling everything's pretty safe. Mm-hmm. I'm in America, I'm in England, I'm in one of those countries that has pretty good security. But, somebody sleeping in a tent in Rwanda doesn't think that, okay? Because somebody's going to come around with a machete and do something. So their perspective is a lot different, and it's more reality.
Which goes back to my philosophy. Which is why Syrians want to flee where they are.
Right. Now, this ties into my second tier, which is, so you get the all serious person, right? We got to own it. We got to act appropriately, and if everybody acted appropriately in the world, there would be no problems. But there's a certain percentage where it tips, and if 10 or 15 or 20 or let's say 40% of people acted like the Walking Dead and zombie apocalypse, we'd all have a big problem, right?
Right.
So we all get by with this and everything's fine. Now,
so are you saying that on that first level of personal security, it is up to us to take responsibility and take a balanced approach to seeing, no, we're not in freaking danger all of the time, so we don't have to walk around going, oh my God, this person, because they look like they could be a terrorist, are now going to take away my liberties, and so I'm going to have to, protect myself all the time. You're not saying that. You're just saying that's an extreme, and the other extreme is, well, I'm going to let everybody else take care of me. Well, that's also not the extreme that we want to be in. But the balanced place on personal security, let me just make sure that I understand this, is I know that I'm in charge of my security. Whether I feel good, bad, happy, sad, safe, or not safe, that's up to me.
That's right. And if you're standing next to a guy that wants to go out and have a lynching today, you need to say something.
Right. What you permit, you promote.
Exactly.
And that's a really, really good point. Okay.
Yeah, so if you're standing there by yourself and there's nothing around you and you're safe, then you need to not act unsafe.
Yes.
Because that perpetuates fear.
Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah. That's absolutely my balance tip. Why I really wanted to do this show is that if you choose to now say that, go down the rabbit hole and say, well, because Paris happened and 9/11 happened, we are not safe. We're always going to have to fear. We're always going to be, I'm not going to travel anymore. I'm not going to make new friends. I'm certainly not going to allow anybody to come into the country anymore that might 1.0000000000001% chance. Have I made it myself clear on that one? Might have affiliation with the terrorists. We're going to close all our borders. We're going to absolutely discriminate and be prejudiced and turn away and hate all those that possibly could remotely, by one chromosome out of 100,000, be related to what happened in Paris in 9/11.
Well, where do we get that type of response? And this goes back to classic.
We're having it right now. I cannot freaking believe that in my research I see that the majority of our states are going there. I mean, I'm like, I'm independent like you. I'm moderate. I don't choose a party, but I'll tell you, seeing that all but one state is a Republican state, I will, I guess I am talking about politics. I pride myself in not talking about politics, but I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked at that reaction. And what's even more shocking and horrifying, which is why we're talking about this now, is that most of the radio stations that I listened to this morning on the way in to get more research to do this show were on that side. That's what's scary.
Okay, but let's look at why, though. Let's look at why. It's because somebody in that category of personal safety, is all security is personal, right? Did not act appropriately, right? So, what do I mean by that? If, and I'm just speculating, the government says, we got to help these people. And there's a legitimate need to help them.
Yes.
And they don't pick up the phone and call all the governors in all the states and say, by the way, just let you know, I'm bringing in 10,000 refugees and let's sit down and talk about it. And they just show up in a bus. Their reactions actually are not inappropriate from that perspective only, right? Because now they're personally saying, wait a minute, these people are showing up at our door. They're not vetted. We didn't go through the laws, the channels. Who brought them here? How did they get here? Okay. And if we didn't have any of this religious stuff going on or any of the wars going on, if 10,000 people showed up at your front door at the dock on a boat, we'd all say, wait a minute, what's happening? In the context of what's happening now, it seems more political and things like that. So I'm not saying that they're completely wrong, but I'm saying the reason is caused by not everybody sitting around saying, let's all make this a personal issue. Let's make ourselves safe, which makes our neighbors safe. Somebody didn't make somebody safe by just saying, we're shipping people over here, not telling them.
I don't know. I disagree on that. I don't think that happened. I think there's been every, the standards have always been there. It's not been easy since 9/11 to become an American. All of the things that have been in place have been in place. So that's no surprise. States know what the strategies are. You and I
don't know. So we're going to have a discussion about it because we're not informed.
What I do hear though is that's not why they're saying that they're mad. That's not why they're saying we're closing the borders. They're saying it's because of that 0.000000001 chance that person is then going to allow a terrorist into my backyard to kill me or to bomb me or to go to the mall is why. And that's that response that I am talking about, which is going down the rabbit hole, because if we go down that rabbit hole, then all the work we've done on valuing diversity and what our country is founded on and seeing people, with the benefit of the doubt goes out the window, because now we're suspicious from point one. And can you imagine a country now of going, and everywhere you drive, when someone cuts you off now, you're going to see do they look like they might be a terrorist, or walking into a concert hall and being afraid that place is going to be bombed, or someone you coming at work who might be wearing a turban and you automatically go, I'm not, like that kind of a life. Is that the kind of life that I want to buy into as a response to what's gone on in Paris? And that's,
no, but you have, not you personally, but as the person that has that perspective, one thing I can tell you that they don't feel is safe. I guarantee you they don't feel safe. And they're not taking personal responsibility for their safety. They're saying, I'm going to let somebody else handle that. I don't know what's going on. That's why I feel unsafe. I got to tell you, my house is the safest house on my block, or maybe in Burbank. I'm not at all worried about a terrorist coming to the mall where I go shopping, because I'm going to do something about it. All right?
Right.
That's just, now I have the training for that. Obviously, I have a background. I have some tools, let's say, right? But I'm not worried about that response because of that reason.
Okay.
But my neighbor Tina freaks out because she doesn't have that ability. She doesn't have those tools. And so her response is, what do I do, right?
Right.
And so shows like this are going to help people, I think.
But okay.
Put a balance and a perspective on it to see what they're doing, right?
But I'm going to augment that. Okay, Tina.
Yeah.
Tina, you don't have to have your house proofed like Chuck's to feel safe, because the same level of safety you feel, Chuck, is what I feel, and I don't have any of that stuff.
Oh no, it has nothing to do with gadgets.
It has nothing to do with gadgets. It has everything to do with, well, not everything, but one very strong aspect is where are you? Are you good? Are you good in this life? Are you good? Like, if something should happen, have you told every single person that you love that you love them? Has there anything been left undone? Have you forgiven, and are you good with 99.9% of the people that you have relationships with? Have you lived a life worth living? Have you done most of what's in your bucket, or what I call my bathtub list, because it's bigger, in life? Have you experienced what it is like to be fully alive? Are you happy 88%? Have you lived a kind of life that expands you and makes you into the person that you are, that is full of love and loving kindness and generosity and creativity? Do you have that in you right now, so that it doesn't matter who comes in and does anything to you, you're good? I mean, that's my message.
I agree with you 100%.
And you're
I agree
there.
With that balance,
and you're,
100%.
Yeah.
Here's something that's interesting about PTSD, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the main component of PTSD? Fear of death, right? Or fear of dying, or that.
Right.
And it's associated with soldiers, but it's also done with domestic violence victims and
Yeah.
so on. I'm not sure I get PTSD because I'm not afraid of dying. Because I've lived a great life, I've had great experiences, I'm in good health, I'm at peace with people. 99% I think I'm at. There's still 1%.
Yeah.
But I agree with that. So I feel safe that way. And
Right.
we'll get to this in 1 second, but fortification has nothing to do with your safety.
Okay, good.
Any
Because
physical
that's where I
security
thought you were
barrier
going,
could
and
be-
that's
could be
why I
breached.
really
Everyone,
wanted
yeah.
to stop. And before you get on that, I have already ran over 4 minutes when I usually take a break, and thank
sorry.
the sponsor of this particular show for sponsoring and promoting and just being a partner to this show about hope and happiness. And today's sponsor is Gary and his beautiful scents. So here's what we're going to talk about for him. Would you like to have your own signature fragrance created for the holidays? Gary Okunzi produces boutique scents containing 100% essential oils from Europe, free of chemicals and alcohol. One of his popular creations, Transylvania Night's Treasure, is a signature fragrance with flower scents indigenous to the actual land of Transylvania. To order, email gary.okunzi@yahoo.com. That's Gary, OCKUNZZI @yahoo.com. Thank you very much. And I've actually had some of his fragrance and sampled it, and it is absolutely fabulous. So what a great holiday gift idea for someone who has everything. That is to contact Gary and have a signature fragrance. You can call it after your own name, or you can call it what Madonna's promoting when she responded at her concert around how do we react to this? We turn around and love. I love unconditionally. Now, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Second concept.
Yes.
And I talk about these in concepts because you have to adopt it to your personal experience, right?
Correct.
But really all security is local, right? So you already have me acting responsibly, me being at peace with myself, not being influenced, right? Mm-hmm. Or pushed around or bullied by people. That's difficult to do for a lot of people. And now I need to look at local. Here's why. The feds are really good at making parking lots out of things. That's what the military mission is. Mm-hmm. Their local on a federal level is the United States. That's their local. What they try to do is they try to get down to the nitty-gritty here in Burbank or Portland and say, I'm going to keep you safe in Burbank and Portland. It's just not possible. Okay, and they're all doing a great job, by the way. The reason it's not possible is because nobody knows better what's going on locally than where you are and what's standing next to you. Mm-hmm. Right? So this goes back to the personal security aspect.
Right.
Now I'm going to look around me and say, I got 10 people in this room and 9 of them are safe. Wait a minute, this guy over here, it's not so safe. That behavior is outside social norms. It's not what I normally experience. If it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. I have to do something about it.
Yes.
Now, we look at this when we look at shooters, right? Mm-hmm. Almost every active shooter, if you study the cases, has told somebody in some way, shape, or form that they're going to go shoot something, right? They foreshadow it all kinds of different ways. If it's not direct contact or a note or a manifesto on their website, it's things like the Virginia Tech guy. And by the way, most shooters in these situations have very little gun experience, but they have high kill rates, unfortunately, not because they're great shots, but because the people that are involved in the shootings of victims freeze and they stay in one place, right? So the Virginia Tech guy decides he's going to go down to the shooting range and he's going to do target practice because he doesn't know how to work a gun. And this is common. Well, what he did was he put the gun silhouettes, the targets, on the ground. And he walked around shooting them on the ground. And you don't do that, okay? You put a target up on a post down the road 50 yards and you shoot it that way. That's traditional target practice. Somebody could have said, Mr. Local Police Department, this guy's shooting targets on the ground. That's a little
weird
outside the norm. There were about 72 incidents with the Virginia Tech shooter that had anybody raise their hand and said, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. There would have been an intervention, probably could have stopped it, okay? Now, I'm not knocking law enforcement. I'm not knocking anybody that responded to this. Heroes all around, the victims. But this goes back to the personal aspect where somebody at that gun range should have personally done something about that, right? And locally, because nobody could have figured this guy out on a network or in a database or a gun check. None of that stuff worked because it happened right there.
Right.
So the local aspect is that. And what I would do if I was going to, let's say, protect LAX, is I would hire all off-duty cops that work and live in Los Angeles. Here's why. I'm not going to let something happen in my backyard. That's just my philosophy as a police officer. That's kind of the way I think. That's how most police officers think. The TSA employees are, federal employees. And so their mindset and view is a federal view, naturally, which is global, so to speak, global to the United States, let's say. And what happens, we find people getting through checkpoints all the time and things are happening, whereas a cop would sit down and say, I got an x-ray, that's great. I got some tools, that's great. But you know what? I just need to talk to you. And when you don't talk to me and engage me socially, I'm going to have you come over here and talk to me some more because something's going on. Not profiling. It's all behavioral analysis is what it is, right?
Yeah, but there's some cultures that are better at talking than others.
But I'm not talking about talking as a mechanism for communication. I'm talking about your behavior involved in your talking. So you can speak, by the way, you know this, but 85% of what we learn from people's body language.
It's
only 7% words, or 65%.
53% body language, 40% tone, pitch, and volume, 7% content of words.
Yeah, very small. So if you're speaking Arabic to me, that's okay.
That's true.
As long as I can feel you and see you and know you're friendly, it doesn't matter what you're saying.
And I would agree with you, except that the bias of the retired cop may be, from his experience, in a similar way, a bias to who he picks out to talk and not.
Well,
and let me just, before we finish that point, because we're running out of time.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's not possible. It's easy to play armchair quarterback. It's not possible to completely rule out any possibility of tragedy. It's just not possible.
Can't be done,
right? It will happen. 9/11 happened. It was horrible. Paris happened. It was horrible. And my heart is broken open for those people's families who lost, unplanned, unexpected. But I do know that all of those people are really in another place and they're good. And I choose to believe that because it feels better and I know it to be true. And I choose a belief system that sees them transition to another place, that we all don't really die. We go into another form, we go somewhere else. But this thing called life is so important to live in a way that isn't perpetuating the cycle of I hate you, I kill you, and now I'm going to retaliate because you killed me and you hurt me, and then I'm going to retaliate and hate you and kill you, and now I'm going to, the Hurt Locker, yeah, great, we got the bad guy. And then the daughter that's watching us get the bad guy, guess what she grows up to do? She hates us so much that she's going to do something to us. And it continues and it continues, and we cannot get to peace through war. You cannot obliterate darkness with darkness. It has to come from the light.
Well, it comes from personal behavior again, doesn't it, right? And the irony in some of these things you see nowadays, which I laugh about, is that the people running around accusing people of hate solve the problem by hating those people.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. So they don't get it. They just don't get it. Just not to pick on anything too political, but Confederate flag, and we're going to put those people in jail, make it against the law, so you're going to hate the people that you say hate. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Okay.
So
last level.
Make you feel a little better.
Third level.
Makes you feel a little better.
Yeah.
I've worked with thousands of cops, and I got to tell you, Doctor, they're good guys and girls. They know what they're doing. And I can spot a bad guy sitting in a coffee shop where you wouldn't, and not because of any race or anything like that. It's behavior, how they're acting, right? So I want you to feel a little better about that.
Okay,
So
good.
that
I will take that in and cut
listen,
some more slack.
I'm a Crusader Rabbit. I'd be all over it if they were doing the opposite. Believe me. All right. So the third level now is this kind of ties in what we're just talking about. All security's now. All right.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing a checkpoint at LAX, and I see something that doesn't look right to me, and I just sit there and don't say anything, I'll report it when I get to the other city. That's not now. And if we acted in a now real-time basis to what I like to call do micro adjustments to things, right? We sit around, we gather data up, and we work on it 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. It's a major correction. It's a major adjustment. Micro adjustments to anything in life through learning, personal relationships, comments, communication are easier for people to accept, all right? So we have to focus on now and act appropriately. I saw the president in that news conference at the G20, and Jim Avila asked him, do you guys, do security briefings and stuff? And he said, I'm paraphrasing, so please send me an email if I'm completely wrong, but I'm not. He says, well, sure, Jim, we have meetings about this. Threats come across all the time. We have so many of them, it's hard to figure out what's what. True statement, okay? But then he said, and every couple weeks, he used the word weeks as plural, or a few weeks, we all get together and sit down and analyze all this stuff. Wrong. Can't be done that way. I'm not taking a personal attack at the president for that. As a system, this has to be acted upon now to do what? Filter out all the stuff that's nonsense so we can all feel better on your show that that's a bunch of garbage, and I don't have to worry about that, right?
Right.
And then not save and pull out the big red herring that's the big news cycle that's salacious and bleeds and leads and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what the news people are waiting for. They're waiting for a higher count, and the terrorists are waiting for that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's important for us to look at now, and if you look at personal, local, and now, and you act that way, you're going to see your fear level drop, and you're going to see the success rate of people intervening. And just as a good nod out to our law enforcement people, one reason we haven't had a giant attack again is because we're doing a really good job, right? I mean, Israel stops about 85% of their bombings, and that's not because they're sitting around not looking at these three concepts I had, right? But now their new thing is what? The terrorists have caught on to that methodology, and they're going around stabbing people in Israel everywhere, stabbing and running them over with cars on a daily basis, dozens and dozens of these attacks, because now the terrorists have caught up with the idea that, you know what, I can't wait for my plan for 5 years. I have to start instilling some fear now. But the Israelis' response is, we're going to respond now, right? And so when it responds now, we're seeing a decline in those attacks because it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can talk about this stuff for hours, but those are kind of the big three concepts. The fourth concept is fortification does not make you safe. Time management makes you safe, right? The Great Wall of China is obsolete, isn't it? But boy, that was a great wall for 1,000 years because nobody could get over it. And then an airplane was invented, and guess what? It's useless. It's nice for tourists, right? So fortification does not make you safe, but your ability to respond within an environment and save 10 seconds, 5 seconds, run, shoot, hide, learn your muscle memory to get under a desk, learn to run out the door instead of freeze like you're trained to do as a kid. Time saves you from death and injury, right? So as you go about your daily life, think of those three main concepts and then build time into everything around you. Give yourself some extra space when you're walking down the street and somebody's walking past you. Move over 2 feet, because 2 feet is going to give you 3 seconds to get out of the way. So those are kind of the big points to think about, and I think they really make people feel a lot safer.
Yeah, and they're good, practical, how do I take responsibility for my own safety in situations where it is, delayable or controllable. And then at the risk of repeating myself, those things that we cannot control right now, there are ways to make the situation worse or better. So what's going on right now, and I'm not saying that we should put our heads in the sand, even though sometimes the view from there is better. I am saying that we are trying to protect ourselves from people who are absolutely out of their mind and out of their heart, and they are killing based on their belief system that says that if I don't believe like you, then you deserve to die.
Well, let me say one thing about that.
Okay.
So if you think that these people are part of the Walking Dead zombie apocalypse and mindless and doing their thing, you're going to be in more fear of that because you can't wrap your head around people that aren't crazy. Nobody can, right? I don't think they're crazy. They're highly intelligent. They're highly motivated, right? They're true believers, right? Now, you can take those three qualities and apply it to any CEO in the United States.
Exactly.
They're product, they're highly motivated, they're true believers, okay? So, think about these people as sophisticated, intelligent. I'm not saying the guy that walks in the mall is like, rocket scientist, but he's got a leader or a handler that's orchestrating and coordinating those things, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at the people as really smart criminals, you're gonna to some degree take them off their pedestal, right? And then if you look at them as stupid criminals, because some of them are really stupid, and then they like the guy that leaves Encino to go over there and join up, idiots, okay? They're short time, philosophical, people that want to join the movement today. It wasn't planned, they didn't think about it. Those people are not too smart. But listen, I'm Catholic. We believe what we believe 2,000 years, right? And there's all these components. So you can't mess with people's true beliefs. Very difficult to defeat. You have to be a true believer in what you believe your personal safety is. If you believe that, you will defeat them. If you don't believe as a true believer yourself that you can take care of yourself, protect yourself, and do some of the things we talked about, they will win. That's going to happen.
But
true
they
believers
will
almost always
also win if we are in fear. And that, unfortunately, is my last word because we're out of time.
Oh, perfect.
But actually, how can we find you?
Oh, Google chuckharold.com. I'm all over the web. I got 9 social media sites. Let's see if I can even read them. SoundCloud, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, the girls' site, LinkedIn, Google+, Instagram.
He's all over the place. You're even
all over the place. And it's securityguywradio.com.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and giving a perspective on personal safety, which is very, very important. Thank you, Chuck Harold.
We can all get through this. We just has to kind of chill.
And I have a couple minutes to do my balance bar. And on the 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Mercer, we are on day 6. Opinion or not. You don't have to express what you're thinking and feeling about everyone, everything, or every situation to everyone, especially if it's negative. Misery may love company, but that's not the company I want to keep. Grumpy is only as cute as one of the dwarfs. So if you're happy, let your face know. And the Asian Oprah giveaway today is my new app that is going to be in the stores this next week. So Diego did an amazing job. If you need anyone to design an app, if that's your creativity outlet, let me know. So a free app to the first person who goes to my website, the number 4, balance.org, and says free app, and you will get that for you in your Santa bag. So I'm going to close with a saying, well, I actually closed with that already, but Brother Ishmael Tete, I think, had the best solution on ending war. And that is, if we can raise all of our children in a way that is not full of hatred, anger, bigotry, discrimination, prejudice. If we can do one whole generation who doesn't know that, then we will have no war. So let's work on that one as at the same time as protecting ourselves on the safety side. Next week, we are, last week of the month, it's that time for sexual healing with Dr. Marissa, and we're actually going the other way and talking about infertility, which is an area that many people are not happy about if they want to have children and can't. So I'm having Tamika Fraser Hines as a guest to talk about healing and how she, at the age of 39, after early menopause, was still able to conceive. So any wannabe moms, this is the show for you next week. Thank you to Sharon for doing the interpreting today and making this a radio for our deaf community, and Jarvis for running the boards as usual, and all of my Kcaa family for doing everything to support this show. So tune in next week for Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. Remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
This is KCAA.
Call the dogs and put out the fire. This is Baxter Black with a little peek at the Carhartt Cowboy. What makes America the most productive